All right, guys, so we have to talk about a story that once again tells us that the demand for racism in this country is much higher than the supply of racism in this country. In fact, the demand is so high and the supply is so low that the woke academics have to cook the books, right? They have to cook the studies in order to find racism where there is no racism. And that's exactly what this story is about today, as a woke FSU criminology professor has abruptly left. He's abruptly quit his job after accusations of cooking race data. Okay, so this guy, whose name is Professor Eric Stewart, this is what he looks like, okay? So everybody knows this is the guy we're talking about here. This guy was accused of faking data that makes racism against Black and Hispanic Americans seem more common than it is. He suddenly exits FSU. Now, again, it's funny because, listen to the Democrat Party, listen to the FBI, the government, you will believe, or they would lead you to believe, that the supply for racism in this country is limitless, right? Because this country is systemically racist. Everything is racist, right? The air that you breathe is racist. The toilet paper that you use to wipe your butt is racist, right? The food that you eat is racist. Everything is racist, okay? Everything is racist. So you would think that this guy would not need to cook the books in order to find racism. But it seems like he had to, and he got caught doing that. So without further ado, let's get into this. A top Florida State University professor whose research focused on race in the criminal justice system abruptly left his post in the wake of years-long allegations of academic fraud. A fellow of the American Society of Criminology, Eric Stewart has had 6 research studies retracted, blemishing FSU's top-ranked criminology department. Stewart was first accused of falsifying data in 2019 by Professor Justin Pickett of the University of Albany, who co-authored a 2021 study with Stewart. Yeah, so my first question here is that FSU has a top-ranked criminology department. So that means that the professors in that department must be pretty distinguished. Now, for this guy to work in a distinguished criminology department, you would think that he would not have to cook his own studies in order to come to the conclusions that he's trying to come to, right? A skilled professor would be able to find it or find a conclusion with real data, right? That's what a skilled propaganda professor would do. This guy seems to be an amateur, right? Which leads me to believe that maybe, just maybe, he may be an affirmative action hire, right? Maybe the guy got his job because he's Black, right? And because of skin color or whatever, more so than his actual merit or his credentials. I'm just saying. He doesn't seem to be an expert con artist, right, in this situation. The study tested if the public's presidential views impacted their desire for harsher sentences for Black and Hispanic Americans. The published findings were that as Black and Hispanic populations grew, so did the public's want for more discriminatory sentences. Except Pickett discovered this was not the case. Now, this was the guy that he co-authored one of his studies with, okay? His partner basically found out that this guy wasn't using real data. In the original data, no relationship was found between growing minority populations and demands for increased sentences. If anything, Pickett pointed out it was quite the opposite. And that's pretty interesting, right? So the study didn't find that as minority populations grow, the demands for increased sentences also grows, right? So what he's trying to prove is that more racism exists in areas that have growing minority populations, right? AKA the white man trying to systemically put down minorities through harsher sentences as more of these populations grow in a city. Like, for example, I guess what it's trying to say is that, well, if minorities are growing in a mostly white city, then it means that, again, the white man is going to try to lock more of them up, right? That's basically what the conclusion is that this guy is trying to come to. That's the narrative he's trying to push. But in this case, that was not the narrative. The narrative didn't fit. In fact, the narrative was the exact opposite, which is that, it seems like as minority populations decrease, so do demands for increased sentences. Now, again, whatever conclusions you want to draw from that, you can do that on your own. But that's what this study found, allegedly what it originally found. And I found that to be absolutely fascinating, right? I really do. I find it to be fascinating that it not only doesn't fit the narrative, but it's the exact opposite of the narrative that the woke race hustling professor was trying to find. Pickett found that their sample size somehow had increased from 500 to over 1,000 respondents. The counties polled had decreased from 326 to 91, and the data was altered to the point of mathematical impossibility. When Pickett brought the altered research to Stewart's attention, he was stalled. Stewart, supported by his other co-authors, refused to give Pickett a copy of the original data for over 4 months. They stated that jumping to conclusions without giving Stewart time to explain himself was unfair. Yeah, they might accuse you of racism and say, you just trying to get a black man fired. That's what they might do. The study, along with 4 more written by Stewart, ranging from 2006 to 2015, were retracted amidst this debate, leading to FSU finally agreeing to a small-scale inquiry made up of a 3-person committee. The inquiry's purpose was to decide if an investigation was necessary. 2 of the 3 individuals on FSU's inquiry committee, however, had co-authored studies with Stewart, directly contradicting FSU's conflict of interest policy. Basically, the investigation was skewed, right? It was biased in favor of the woke professor. The inquiry team made no effort to sequester Stewart's original data or interview those who had filed the allegations. 2 further ignored steps in inquiry proceedings. During this process, Stewart told school administrators that Pickett's claims, quote, essentially lynched me and my academic character, taking on greater weight considering 5 out of his 6 retracted studies are race-related, and Stewart himself is black. See, ding, 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 ding. Here come the cries of racism, right? Oh, they're lynching me, right? They're lynching me. Again, this is the race hustler's modern-day definition of being lynched. It's simply being criticized, right? Criticism is hate. Criticism is lynching, right? Again, this stuff is, you can't make this stuff up. The committee stated that they did not find enough evidence for fraud nor to move forward with an investigation, seemingly ending the dispute. That is, however, until June 2020, when a new allegation over a 6 retracted work reached the university, reinitiating an inquiry and resulting investigation, and this time it did not come up short. Professor Stewart's 16-year FSU career appears to have ended, signaled by his abrupt March 2023 absence. His sudden, unexplainable replacement may indicate the looming end of the investigation, with enough evidence of fraud discovered to justify termination. Stewart, who earned nearly $190,000 per year, couldn't be reached for comment, while FSU declined to discuss his tenure and mid-March departure. Yeah, ain't that crazy? Ain't that absolutely something? Now you see why these woke race hustlers exist, okay? This guy is earning $190,000 a year to come up with studies showing that the country's racist, right? And again, people keep wondering, why in the world is there such a demand for racism, right? It's because it's lucrative. It's lucrative. $190,000 a year. But the supply for it was so low that this man had to cook the books, right? Cook the data. Again, it's absolutely amazing. This is what we're paying woke race hustlers. Okay, this guy's in the top 5% with a salary like that. Getting paid to do what? Divide. Okay, divide America with lies. Though Professor Pickett declined to discuss the investigation, he did tell the Florida Standard of the immense pressure for professors to publish or perish. He explained the gaping accountability loopholes in research, citing that 1 in 50 scientists have admitted to faking data. Yeah, I believe it, right? I believe that they do it, and I also believe that the government does it as well, right? I believe that it's a widespread thing where they manipulate data to fit a narrative that they want to push. Okay, this is exactly what they do. It's not just an academia thing. It is a government thing. It is systemic, right? There's systemic fraud when it comes to a lot of this data that they're putting out there, including polls, right? You know how the left, they always put out these polls showing that an overwhelming amount of the country agree with them on this, that, and the other issue. Meanwhile, when you go and you actually read the poll and the questions, they're not asking the real questions, right? They're not asking the real questions. You know, it's kind of funny how that works. I mean, there's just so much fraudulence going on here. Quote, there's a huge monetary incentive to falsify data, and there's no accountability. If you do this, the probability you'll get caught is so low. Pickett said that those who co-author studies are usually friends and unlikely to report a colleague's fraud. If it is reported, the university will rarely act. He highlighted Duke University's recent fraud scandal in which they paid upwards of $100 million for a large-scale cover-up. Quote, there's too much incentive to fake data and too little oversight. Facts, right? There is an incentive to fake the data, right? There is an incentive to cook a lot of this stuff. It's to push the narrative. It's to push the agenda, whether it be when it comes to race, gender, sex, climate change, any far left issue, right? The reason why woke academia is so far left is because they're being paid to be far left, right? They're being paid to, okay? And here you have a prime example of it. This guy's getting paid $190,000, and that doesn't include whatever else he might be getting paid for, speaking fees and stuff like that, all types of other stuff, to come up with fake studies showing that this country's racist. Because again, that fits the narrative. But too bad, he wasn't a good enough propaganda artist to not get caught. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.